Hello everyone and welcome to my data overview. My name is Lucy McNeely. I'm from Swangsboro High School and I currently work in the Fine Arts Department. The purpose of this presentation is to examine what changes in student attendance have occurred at SHS during the last 2 years and compare that to the preceding 2-year span to see if the new calendar changes were effective. It also is to examine the ninth grade literature EOC results from the EOC exam and compare the results to that of the district and state level. Finally, we need to determine what strengths and weaknesses are in the current ELA department and how they can improve upon these weaknesses. Some questions to consider while going through this data overview. How can we increase student progress, student achievement? Also, how can we increase student attendance, which I think is very vital to this presentation. The purpose is to analyze past and present data for student achievement strengths and weaknesses, and also to create an action plan to increase student achievement and proficiency. First, I want to start off with student enrollment. The student enrollment by district high schools, there are 2 high schools in Emanuel County School District, one being Swangsboro High School, the other being Emanuel County Institute or ECI. You'll notice that ECI has a total of 344 students, whereas Swangsboro High School has a total of 707 students currently. The whole school student enrollment for the past 4 consecutive years, you can see in 2014 we were very close to 760 students, and it significantly dropped in 2015 to less than 720. There really is no cause for this drop, the significant drop, except for the incoming 9th grade class that year was much smaller than the graduating senior class. Once again, as noted in 2016, there was another drop from 2015. And once again, there's really no noted reason as to why we had an enrollment drop. In 2016 to 2017, there was a significant gain from a little bit more than 680 to about 710 students. And you'll notice that we are almost back to where we were in 2015. The enrollment by gender is rather interesting. You'll notice in 2014 we were almost exactly even. 2015 was where we had our widest gap in between male and female students. 2016 that gap narrowed and it pretty much stayed as a baseline through 2017. Within 2017 there being a little bit more than 350 male students and a little bit more than 330 female students. Student enrollment as a whole compared to that of students with disabilities. In dark green you have your total population, and in the lighter green you have your students with disabilities. Student disabilities would be any of those that are served under an IEP that receive special services. It could range anything from students who have a 504 plan to students that are receiving speech services. In 2014, you'll notice the total enrollment of 758 and 123 of those students were served under students with disabilities. You'll notice that pretty consistently the students with disabilities number remains the same. There's not that much kind of give or take with it, as well as the very insignificant drops in our enrollment data as well. So I will have to say that over a 4-year span, our ratio of population to students with disabilities is very much consistent. Here we have a very other important piece of the puzzle, which I think in between our socioeconomic status and economically disadvantaged students, alongside our attendance data, 2 of the major factors in our overview or our snapshot per se of data. So you'll notice here is the whole school versus the socioeconomic or economically disadvantaged population. First off, you will notice that this is rather backwards for some people who are not in a very poverty-stricken area. You'll notice that the dark green are the students that actually do not meet the standards for economically disadvantaged, and the lighter green, which is by far the much larger population, are the students who do meet. And that is over 75% of our students qualify under a lower socioeconomic status, or they're considered economically disadvantaged. Every student in our district qualifies for free breakfast and free lunch regardless of their socioeconomic status. So you'll see that in 2014 we had 568 students that qualified, 190 did not, and you'll notice that that margin slowly got larger and larger and larger. By the time 2017, we were at 615 students who qualified for a lower socioeconomic status or economically disadvantaged, while only 92 students in our building did not meet the qualifications for that. Student diversity, I think, is another very important piece of the data puzzle. You'll notice that 50% of our students are black, 42% of our students are white, 5% of our students are Hispanic, 3% would be other, but we broke it down into 2 and 1%, 2 being multiracial, and 1 being island or Asian. Like I said, student attendance is a very large piece of the data puzzle. And I say that because at our school we significantly have a very low socioeconomic status or economically disadvantaged students that are coming to us, many of them coming from government housing. Parents are trying to work while students are trying to maintain the daily home activities, including babysitting, taking on other job responsibilities to help bring income in. They don't have help at home to complete assignments, and neither do they have the means to complete those assignments. And I really think that plays into our student attendance. And you'll notice that our student attendance ratios are right hovering around 50%. And that means that between 40 to 50% of our students miss more than 6 instructional days in the classroom. And to me, that's huge. You can't teach a student and expect them to gain the knowledge if they're not in the seat to gain that. Student attendance by gender. I think it's pretty interesting to see that it's pretty much tit for tat. Males are at 52, females are at 49%. 382 total students. That's the total amount of students that miss 6 or more days. That's what this pie chart represents. Student attendance. This is student absences by race. As the previous data showed, we're a little higher black population than white, but they're almost pretty much 50-50, if you would. So therefore, that data represents that for both 2016 to 2015. And then you'll notice that our Hispanic and our other data is consistent with that as well. Most importantly, I believe, is student attendance, but student attendance reported based on socioeconomic status or economically disadvantaged. The darker area are students who are served under economically disadvantaged, and the green are students who are not served under economically disadvantaged. And ironically, the students who maybe have struggles at home, living in government housing, you know, come from mixed backgrounds as far as might be living with grandparents or aunts or other family members, those students significantly have less number of absences, or they're fewer rather, than students that are, do not come from that type of background. So that is showing a push that they want to be at school. Also remember that because of that low socioeconomic status, we do offer 2 meals a day to them at no cost. So that might be a pushing factor for them to be at school. We're going to get into actual testing data. Like I said, I am a visual arts teacher, so I don't actually teach a tested subject, so I decided to get the closest thing to me, and that is the English Language Arts department. Here's the graduation literature testing data showing students scoring at least at the proficient level, if not the distinguished level, which would be a level 3 to a level 4. You'll notice that you have data from 2013 through 2016. However, you will notice that 2013 data was recorded from the graduation test. 2014 data was graduation test, and then you'll notice significant differences, and that's because you switched the testing instrument. So you went from the graduation test to an end of course test, or as we call it, an EOC. In 2016, I think it's important to show, based on just a quick snapshot of the EOC literature testing data, once again of students that were scoring proficient, levels 3 or 4, up to distinguished. This is broken down to the school data, the system data, and the state data based from 2013, 14, 15, and 16. So the chart that I just showed you a minute ago had the school, which is right there on the left-hand side, but I wanted you to be able to compare it once again to the system and to the state. Because if you just look at the school instrument and you kind of understand that we switched instruments at that point midway, so 2 of them show the graduation test, 2 of them show EOC, you still see a significant difference. But then when you compare that to that of the state and to the system, you'll notice that everyone experienced that significant difference. Here we have the 2016, which is the most current data, ninth grade lit testing data, and it shows the percentage of students in each mastery category. You have beginner, developing, proficient, and distinguished, and this once again is a representation of school to state to the system. The N equals 192 means that there was 192 students that took that exam. So you'll notice that as you're looking through here, once again, because of our socioeconomic status and because of probably our attendance, our numbers are fluctuating. The biggest difference coming from that category of being proficient. So our strengths, I believe that our consistency of ratio enrollments and gender and race is a strength for us because we know what our students, what their needs are and who they are. I believe that the gap is narrowing between English language arts scores between the school, the county, and the state. However, I think our weaknesses at this point are huge attendance issues, with over half of the students at SHS are considered developing learners. And if you'll remember, those students that are missing more than 6 days are missing those seat hours in the classroom, as well as going home with no really support there as well. Currently, only 35% of our students are in levels 3 or 4 compared to that of the state level of 40. There's been a decrease in the last 2 years of students in that 3 to 4 proficiency. Attendance records show that a percent of students that miss 6 or more days of school has actually increased over the past 4 years, which is interesting to note that we switched that state calendar with that included our 4 breaks during the year with a week off. Summary, student enrollment is increasing back to where it was 2 years previous while still maintaining the students with disability ratio. Even though data from the past 2 years of EOC testing seems low, it still looks pretty much in correlation with that of the county and state test scores. I really don't see any significant difference in the amount of students meeting or exceeding with EOC scores as compared to Georgia high school graduation test. And I do see a significant amount of students that progress from developing to proficient learners. The next steps, we should offer more incentives to students with more than 3 or fewer absences. I believe that our ELA teachers really need to evaluate their assessments for their DOK levels, as well as really go back and truly align those with the standards. And our data team needs to research new instructional strategies to incorporate lessons.